You guys, Electric Cup almost broke me. I lost so many games. It's not even funny. I lost so much ELO. But eventually I found a team that works. But before I get to that, I am going to put you guys through my losses. It was definitely a learning experience, that's for sure. And at one point, I thought I might uninstall the game, but no, I took a break. I stepped away. And then I came back with a clear mind. And once I was more familiar with the meta, I eventually understood what I was doing wrong in the first few sets. And that's why I think it's important to look at some of my first few games, because we can all learn from my mistakes and also from the meta and how the matchups are. Because once I got used to the matchups, I started doing a little bit better, and then I thought, okay, maybe it's not the cup that sucks, maybe it's me that sucks. Oh, and the footage you're seeing in the background is me attempting to get a Luxray with Hidden Power Ground. I evolved a couple and then I gave up on it. I have like 10 Luxrays evolved and I still haven't found Hidden Power Ground. I decided I wasn't going to evolve anymore because the more I evolve, the more I have to TM Psychic Fangs onto, and I don't have that many elite TMs. So the games had no Luxray for you, but I thought it might be nice to have one because, you know, content. And you guys, I waited until 12 a.m. my time, which is when the cups rotate, to play, and I played immediately. And beforehand, I was just researching teams and trying to figure out what the best team would be to run in this cup. And I thought I had figured out a really nice team. And then I just get let down. So I was up from 12 to 2 a.m. trying to record battles and not getting anything good. So the first thing I tried out that I thought was going to be a very good team was Alolan Graveler in the lead with Galvantula on the safe swap and Hisuian Electrode in the back. Now, I tried it for the first game and I did pretty well with it. As you can see, we won lead against that Galvantula, and then my opponent brings in Electrode. Now, because I am not used to these matchups, I take too long to swap in my Galvantula, and my opponent throws 2 wild charges against Galvantula. I have to shield the second one, but if I had swapped in a lot faster, I would have made it to that lunge earlier. I think I still would have had to shield that second wild charge because Galvantula is pretty squishy, but now we are up against their own Galvantula, and I am going to be able to get to that lunge and debuff them before they can debuff us. I make it to another lunge, which is really nice, and they are deciding to farm me down completely. Now my opponent brings in Luxray, and I can bring in my Hisuian Electrode. Because Hisuian Electrode takes neutral from ground type moves, I am assuming this Luxray is running a ground type hidden power. So that's why I have Hisuian Electrode in the back and Galvantula in the back, because I want to have something to swap into a Luxray if I see that on the lead. And as you can see, I was also running Swift on Electrode at the beginning because I thought that would be good, but it turns out it sucks. So I was able to take that first win, but it wasn't the cleanest. Like I said, I wasn't too familiar with the matchups yet, and also I wasn't familiar with the cup, so it took a little bit of adjusting. Now I see the Luxray on the lead, and you can see why I have Galvantula and Hisuian Electrode in the back, because they both take neutral from that ground type fast move. Unfortunately, my opponent is going to be able to swap in their own Alolan Graveler against our Galvantula, and he is running Rock Throw, and this is where I realized that maybe Rock Throw would be the better move for me to run on my own Graveler. I am running Volt Switch at first, and I do run Volt Switch for a good amount of games until I finally realize maybe that's not the way to go. Also, for some reason there, it didn't let me CMP tie with the Luxray on the Stone Edge. Like, I could have thrown Stone Edge and they would have thrown Psychic Fangs, and I wouldn't have had to take a fast move from their Luxray. But for some reason, it did not register, and I had to swap out into my own Electrode, and then they bring in Galvantula, and we just get RPS'd here. Unfortunate. I was getting a lot of lag too. So we did lose that last game, and then moving on to the next game, I do get a really good lead, and then my opponent swaps into Minun, and I, again, take way too long to swap into Galvantula. So I actually probably should have swapped my Electrode here because Electrode resists both of the moves that this Minun is going to throw, but so does Galvantula, so I wasn't really sure what to swap. Again, like I said, one of the issues I was having was not knowing the matchups, not swapping immediately, not being quick to make decisions, so I got better as I went on. And that is the key takeaway from this, that as you practice, you get better at making decisions quickly. Now my opponent has their own Electrode in the back, and if I had saved that Galvantula and I had swapped Electrode into their Minun instead of Galvantula, I would have had Galvantula against their Electrode and I would have had a much better matchup. My opponent is going to be able to swap out with a move on their Electrode, and unfortunately we have to use Shield here because I can't take an Energy Ball from this Galvantula and they are not running Energy Ball. I shouldn't have shielded the second one here. Actually, I think I should. I don't know if I live it again. Like I said, not sure about the matchups. And my opponent goes ahead and brings in Electrode, and because they have that Energy Ball stored up, they are able to take us out and take that win, unfortunately. Now I run into another Alolan Graveler lead, and that's why I eventually put the Lantern, as you see in the team on the left, on the lead. But when I put Lantern on the lead, they disappeared. Now you're going to see that the opponent is actually running the same team that I am running, so we both had the same idea, but unfortunately because my Graveler loses CMP, I am going to lose this match, and my opponent brings in Galvantula here. I am able to reach that lunge first, which is good for me, and I can debuff him before he debuffs me. I'm going to go ahead and shield the lunge as well because I don't want my Electrode to see it in the back. Unfortunately, his Graveler is still alive, mine is not. I have no fast move pressure on my last two Pokemon, so it takes me a while to take out this Graveler. Unfortunately, I have to take a move on my Electrode as well, and actually, I go ahead and shield, and that takes my last shield, and it's still alive, keep in mind. I wanted to save my Galvantula in the back with a move, just in case my opponent had the same team I was running, and it turns out I was right, but I can't win this anymore. I didn't do too bad in this first set. It was just a 2-3, and I was still pretty confident that the team could still perform, and I figured I was just getting used to it, so I decided to continue with the team. I thought it was a good team, and I was going to keep playing with it. Now, I was happy to see that Galvantula on the lead, but my opponent swaps in Luxray, and I swap Hisui and Electrode, and I'm gonna learn here that in the two shields, Hisui and Electrode does not win against Luxray. So it's unfortunate that they are debuffing us, and these fast moves are going to start adding up, and it's going to be enough to take out my Electrode, and I'm not going to win that. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to bring in my Galvantula against this Luxray because Luxray's fast moves do way too much to Graveler because Graveler is going to be taking double super effective from ground fast moves. Now I do immediately swap in Graveler after taking out Luxray, and unfortunately they have another answer to Graveler in the back. As I expected, they had Lantern, so we're not going to be able to take this win. Now I want you guys to see what I see on the lead here. I see a Golem on the lead, and we do manage to win this match because I am able to take both of their shields in this first matchup. And then in the next game, I see an Alolan Graveler on the lead. So I was seeing a lot of frog types on the lead. Keep this in mind for when I show you guys the set I played with the team on the left. Now, whenever my opponent's Graveler had Rock Throw as a fast move, I was losing lead. And like I said, because my back two Pokemon did not have any fast move pressure, the Graveler, when it was staying alive, it was causing a lot of issues for my backline. Because in order for me to take it out with Electrode, I would have to reach either an Energy Ball or a Wild Charge, and if I reached a Wild Charge, I would have to debuff myself, and reaching an Energy Ball would just take so long. So I was really struggling against these Graveler leads, which is why eventually I put the Lantern on the lead. And you can see in this match in particular, the Graveler was able to do so much damage to my Hisui and Electrode. It basically took out my Graveler and my Hisui and Electrode on its own, so I just top left there. There was no way I was going to win that. Okay guys, now look at this lead again, Graveler with Rock Throw. I was taking notes. I was like, okay, I really need a lead that is going to be able to beat this. And this time my opponent double shields, so their Graveler is very healthy once they take us out, unfortunately, and they have a lot of energy stored up as well. I'm gonna go for this Stone Edge, and it's gonna get their second shield. Now I have to bring in my Electrode because my Galvantula cannot take these Rock Throws. I take the Stone Edge, and unfortunately this is another situation where this Graveler is just going to absolutely demolish my entire team, and my opponent even catches the Energy Ball on their Galvantula, which is really bad for us. There is no way I'm going to be able to win this. I even shield across poison. Yeah, no way. Moving on. Now I go ahead and I TM Rock Throw onto my Graveler because, like I said, I was losing to it. And I see it differently this time. I see an Electrode and I do a very stupid mistake and I swap my Galvantula, which is the hard answer for Electrode. You should never do that. And actually, as we saw in the previous matches, Graveler does really well against Electrode. But this is going to be a double rock team. So I am not going to be able to win this. Honestly, if you're trying to climb the legend, just run 2 rock types, honestly. These rock types are really strong. If you could just use one to lure out a Lantern or a Luxray in the back, then you should be good. The second one should be able to sweep. So we lose that set pretty badly as well, and ouch, my elo, we drop a lot of points. At this point, I'm thinking, let me try to invest in a Minun because I'm realizing that it's pretty bulky and it has access to Grass Knot, so it could be decent against the rock types that I'm seeing. It could be decent against the Lanterns, and also its fast move is going to be neutral against most of the meta, so I thought maybe I'll try it out. Now I go ahead and I pair it with Lantern on the lead because I was seeing a lot of Graveler leads, and I put Galvantula in the back because I really like Galvantula in this cup. It's really strong. Now, this current set I'm showing you now is not the set where I went positive. As with all new teams, there's always a learning curve, and I was getting used to it in this set. I also went 1-4, so I went negative again. But we're learning. I was getting really frustrated at this point, and I was also getting worried because I really wanted to make a video. And you might be thinking, oh, you're already legend. Why does it matter for you to, do well? I don't really care about climbing. I just really want to find a team that works because I want to make recommendations on my channel, and if I'm not making good recommendations, then what's the point? Like, I want to find teams that others can use to reach legend. So that's why I was like putting a lot of pressure on myself because I really wanted to find something that worked, but nothing was working. Now here I thought this game was over because I have Lantern left against their Electrode and I have no shields. But these water guns are starting to add up. I took an energy ball and I survived. I don't throw the surf because I want to do the fast move damage, but my opponent goes ahead and throws a wild charge, and because they debuff their self, my Minun has enough health where it can farm down with the quick attack. So that's where I said, quick attack is going to be doing neutral damage against a lot of the Pokemons in this meta. So that's why I thought Minun would be good, and I was really happy to see that it was able to farm down that Electrode there. So we took that first win. I was starting to get a little bit hopeful, but it all goes downhill from here. Now my opponent here is not running the ground hidden power, it looks like, because I wasn't taking super effective damage from it. It still does so much damage though because it is Shadow Luxray, and I go ahead and I swap out as soon as my opponent debuffs me into my Minun, and my opponent brings in Togedemaru. I'm actually okay with this. All the Togedemaru is going to have is Fell Stinger and Wild Charge. Fell Stinger isn't going to be doing too much damage, but it is going to be giving my opponent an attack boost, and unfortunately that means this Wild Charge can take us out. Now I can bring in my Lantern and I'm going to farm down completely. I know that this is only a Fell Stinger, so I can take it. So I farm down, and I was expecting my opponent to bring in Luxray, but they bring in Galvantula, and because Galvantula has a little bit of an energy lead, they are able to reach the lunge before we do. What I don't like about Galvantula is swapping in when it has that tiny bit of energy lead. That's not great for us. Now I am double debuffed, and this lunge is not going to be enough to take out the Galvantula, and my opponent actually has a Psychic Fangs stored on their Luxray. We're not going to be able to take this win, unfortunately. The rest of the set does not go well at all. It's getting late, I'm tired, and I'm getting frustrated, and I'm just losing, and I know I probably should not rage queue anymore, but I was just rage queuing at this point. But yeah, also not a single Alolan Graveler in sight once I put this Lantern on my team. But I wanted to keep going. I just needed one positive set. That's all I was asking for. And when I saw this elo, I was like, that's it. I should quit Pogo. I suck. So you know what I did? I closed the game, and I went and I played something that was actually fun. Okay, but in all honesty, I wasn't going to give up that easily. I went and I took a break. I thought maybe if I come back to the game later, I'll have a little more confidence. to continue, and I won't be rage queuing as much because I was just fed up at this point. But I wanted to give this team another try, so that's what we're going to do. So first match, we're going to see a terrible lead of Hisui and Electrode on the lead into our Lantern, and I'm going to safe swap into my Minun, and my opponent is going to bring in a Luxray. It's not looking good for us at all so far. My opponent shields the first Grass Knot, but they don't shield the second one, and that's really good for us because that means we are able to take out their Luxray. And now my opponent brings in Hisui and Electrode, and the Hisui and Electrode is aligned to our Galvantula, which is exactly where we want to see it. I go ahead and I shield the first Wild Charge, but I am not able to reach the lunge before they're able to reach a second Wild Charge. They immediately swap into their own Lantern, and I'm going to go ahead and throw the lunge because A, it's a bait and I can potentially take their final shield, which I do, and B, I can debuff them so that when I bring in my own Lantern, I have a better matchup against their Lantern. I'm actually not going to have to shield anything from this Lantern because they are debuffed, and I'm going to be able to reach a second Thunderbolts. However, because our switch timers are not aligned, I am going to have to throw the Surf to stall a little bit of time, and now I can bring in my Galvantula farm down, and I'm going to have a lunge for their Lantern in the back, and we can take them out and take that first win. First set back, it's looking pretty positive so far. Moving on to the next match, we are going to be seeing a Shadow Galvantula on the lead. I'm going to go ahead and stay in this matchup because I don't want my own Galvantula against this Shadow Galvantula, and also all of Minun's moves are resisted. I go ahead and go for the Surf, and because my opponent overfarmed, I am tempted to think that they are going to go for a lunge first. However, they went for Cross Poison, and no shielding there was such a lucky move on my part, and they are going to go for the lunge on the second move, so I go ahead and I shield that just to keep my Lantern healthy. We are able to take out the Galvantula because they don't shield the second Surf. Now, my opponent is going to bring in Minun, and I immediately swap into my own Minun, and I'm going to go for these Grass Knots. They no shield the second one, and we're able to take them out, and then my opponent is going to bring back in Lantern. I'm going to go for this Discharge, but it seems my opponent thought that this was also a Grass Knot, so they go ahead and they use their final shield, and with shields down, my Galvantula is easily going to be able to take that win. My opponent realizes this, and top left, GG's to my opponent. Moving on to the next match, we are going to be seeing another Galvantula lead. What happened to all the Graveler leads? It seems like as soon as I put the Lantern on my team, I'm not seeing it anymore. I'm going to go ahead and shield the first move because they CMP tied us on the Surf, and usually when they do that, they throw the Energy Ball, so I was correct. They went for the Energy Ball. I am going to go ahead and swap into my safe swap, which is Minun, because Lantern really struggles against Galvantula. I didn't shield the lunge, I took it, and then my opponent brings in their own Minun, and I have a ton of energy on this Minun, so I'm going to go for these Grass Knots and just throw them as soon as I get them. And my opponent is going to be able to take us out here with a Discharge, and now I'm going to bring back in Galvantula instead of Lantern because Galvantula resists everything from Minun, and I'm going to be able to farm this down for so much energy. My opponent has Lantern in the back, and they decide to bring it in instead of bringing in their Galvantula. I bait with a lunge, and for some reason my opponent doesn't shield it. They take the lunge, but I do manage to catch a Surf on my Lantern, which is really good for us. I'm going to go ahead and shield in case this is Energy Ball. It is. They are not going to be able to make another move. We would be able to farm them down there, and my opponent surrenders. GG's. Moving on to the next match, we are going to be seeing a Lantern on the lead. Now, I have two answers to Lantern in the back. I'm going to go ahead and swap into my safe swap, which is Minun, and we draw out an Alolan Golem, and I assume they are going to go ahead and double shield their Golem here. I'm going to shield once because I know I can make another Grass Knot. I don't think I would have made a Discharge and a Grass Knot, so I go ahead and I go for the Grass Knot because I'm not going to be able to make two moves. Now here I immediately recognize that they are running double rock. I know that this is a Rock Blast only, so I'm able to take it. Now I'm able to farm them down. I'm going to bring in Galvantula, and because they use two shields on their Golem, I'm going to be able to throw the Energy Ball, but not without going into the red with Galvantula because those rock throws did way too much damage to my Galvantula. And unfortunately here, we are not going to be able to take this win. I need to reach a second Thunderbolt, and I'm not going to be able to reach it before my opponent can reach a Surf. So GG's to my opponent. They are able to take us out with a Surf, and they take this win. But moving on to the next match, we are going to be seeing a Shadow Magnezone on the lead. Now, this is actually where we want to see it because my back two Pokemon are not going to be doing very well against Magnezone. I am going to be going for these Surfs, and I expect my opponent to shield. I'm going to no shield and call a Mirror Shot. I was correct. I got really lucky. I go ahead and call a second one, but my opponent goes for the Wild Charge, and that takes us out. Unfortunate for us, and they save the Magnezone in the back. They swap out of it. My opponent brings in their Galvantula, and they go for a Cross Poison. I am going to go for the Lunge, and now they are in a range where I can farm them down. I am assuming this is another Cross Poison. It is, so we are still in the yellow with our Galvantula. This is going to get really tricky because my opponent still has a very healthy Magnezone, and we are both even shields. My opponent brings in Lantern instead of Magnezone, so I'm going to go for the Energy Ball, and I take their final shield. And I am okay with taking the Surf on my Minun, and my opponent brings in Magnezone, and I'm going to throw a Discharge before they can reach a move on their Magnezone. It takes them out because Magnezone is very squishy, and now I am able to reach a Grass Knot on their Lantern. It is not going to be enough to take out the Lantern. However, I'm also able to reach a Discharge, and this should be doing enough damage to take it out, and we take that win. And that gives us 4 wins in this set, so I can recommend this team. However, I can make another recommendation. If you're not Legend yet, maybe don't play Electric Cup. Go play Open Great League, okay? Good luck!